is immutable. The money is
The Genesis locked to the edge of the mempool. We are decoding Bitcoin's signal in the noise. Privacy, self-custody, censorship resistance. Welcome to the revolution. This is OnChain Revolution.
Welcome back to OnChain Revolution. My name is Yagobi, and I am the host of this channel and show. Welcome back, guys. Bitcoin looked really good yesterday, but will it continue to move to the upside? We're going to discuss that. We got a lot to get into today. A lot of stuff is kind of happening across the space. Obviously, you know, Bitcoin with that strength that it showed, getting to 74,000, which we haven't gotten to in forever, right? So it's been a long time since we've been in those levels, but will it continue to the upside? That's the question. That's the question everybody's wondering. You know, they're asking themselves, is this a fake out type of situation? I don't necessarily think that, but I would say pump the brakes here a bit, because we got to remember there's levels to this. And, you know, this could just be the spring pump up that, you know, I've been talking about, right? That spring energy. But remember, when we zoom out on that weekly chart, we got some days kind of ranging until potentially we recapture that 50-day moving average. That's the sign I'm waiting for, and I'm sticking to it. But I'm open-minded enough to realize that things could change. And that's how you got to be. You got to be like water. You got to be flexible, right? So a lot of stuff we're going to hit on today. It was great yesterday having the guys from Big Noodle on in Ordinal Hive. Just a reminder, I do co-host a X Spaces every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central, co-hosted by or with Ordinal Hive as well. It's on X, so all you got to do is go to X, follow Ordinal Hive at Ordinal Hive, and you'll see the Spaces reminder there, and you just click that. It's going to be fun. We're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about Bitcoin. We're going to talk about, you know, the future of the Bitcoin ecosystem and crypto. It's just a real kind of fun educational space there. But some other stuff we're going to hit on today. We're going to talk about the rebound to 74,000 for Bitcoin, all right, and what that means for alts, right? Because Bitcoin had that strong push yesterday, and it looks like it's weakening a little bit, but we're going to take a look at Bitcoin dominance as well, because that is a metric that we look at, or a chart we look at that we use as an indicator to potentially say, okay, alts might have their time to shine a little bit here. So should be good. Getting into that, stablecoin inflows going up, you know, ETF inflows going up. A lot of stuff is going up and showing us that, you know, maybe this energy will be hanging around for a little bit. We'll also hit on some craziness from Polymarket, insider trading type stuff, right? You had 12 wallets, or sorry, 6 anonymous wallets make $1.2 million. And it had to do with markets about the Iran war conflict. So, I mean, that is not good when we're seeing that kind of stuff. So we'll dive into that. And then we'll hit on some Bitcoin ecosystem stuff as well. You got some releases from the Stacks ecosystem with Bitflow, and then Beyond Tech also releasing an Ordinals collection, which is interesting. We'll dive into that. Beyond Tech is backed by Layer Zero as well, or they have an association. They use some of the technology over there, so that should be very exciting as well. But before we get into the start of the show, which is the market pulse, I'm going to ask you guys to help me out like you guys always do, because you guys are awesome. First of all, welcome back, Myzora, Abstract, TikTok, and of course YouTube and X audiences. I'm not forgetting about Rumble either. Love you guys out there. But if you could hit that like on whatever platform you're on, YouTube, and then also subscribe over there if you like my content and style, right? It definitely helps out the show. I really do appreciate you guys' support. And then continually put your comments and questions in the chat, and I'll get to them accordingly. We got a good morning from Glasshopper. Good morning. Glasshopper is an OG of the community here and the Bitcoin ecosystem in the broader crypto space as well. And then you got Crypto Node 15 says GM, or good morning. Good morning to you both. Good morning to you both. All right, let's get this started. I think we got some stuff over on Abstract as well, saying, I think it's Milnick, good morning. Erilyn, good morning. And Poet Babe, hello. Hello to you. But let's get started with the market pulse. The market pulse. Let's see what is happening. We did have the we had the numbers come in yesterday, even though they didn't come in with the actual market watch while we were live yesterday. I went ahead and researched ahead of time and, saw the numbers for the public employment new jobs, which was 63,000 reported by ADP employment, right? So 63,000 and definitely overshot that expectation. So that's good. They did have to revise January's numbers from 22,000 to 11,000. So I don't know how long we're going to hold on to the 63,000 here, but maybe it was something that got pushed over. Maybe that's why we're up here. Those 11,000 might have got pushed into February's numbers. I'm not sure exactly, but good numbers for yesterday's ADP public sector. Definitely overshot that expectation there. Then you got the S&P final U.S. services PMI coming in at 51.7, so a little bit lower than expected at that 52.3. We've been talking about this a little bit starting in January's numbers, because January's numbers was pretty good, and as that PMI continually goes up, that's whenever you start to get into a little bit more risk on, because the manufacturing is going up, right? That performance and cost and stuff is actually benefiting manufacturers, right? You do have the ISM services coming in at 56.1, expected was 53.5. So that aspect of it was better. But yeah, that's what we got for yesterday. Today, jobless claims comes in at 213,000 when the forecasted expectations were 215. So a little bit better than what was expected. We matched the previous amount there. Outside of that, on Friday, we do have the actual unemployment report and unemployment rate. So that's going to be interesting to see how we do with those numbers there. But that's going to wrap up kind of the economic calendar for this week. And then we'll wait on those numbers to come in tomorrow. All right, let's see. We got another comment in here. Cheaty says, what's up, Yak? What is up, Cheaty? You always brighten up my day when you come into the chat, sir. Hopefully you are doing well. I know that you did pretty well last year from what it seemed like whenever I was seeing your posts on X and stuff. So hopefully you're continually doing well. The market's been tough. That is for sure. Outside of, even with Bitcoin right now, it's tough, but the alts have been definitely tough. But all right, let's get into the overall market pulse here and see how the market is feeling this morning on this Thursday, with Bitcoin, retracing a bit, right? I made this title a couple hours ago, and so Bitcoin was around that 73,000, but it's retraced all the way to 70, almost right below 71, as you guys can see here. And we'll get deeper into the Bitcoin and Ethereum price action, but let's check the overall market sentiment. You got the S&P pulling back 0.78%, the NASDAQ pulling back 0.5%. You got the Dow Jones pulling back 1.5%. The VIX is up about 4.5%. So volatility kicking up a little bit to the downside, right? The DXY up 0.58%. And then the Russell pulling back 1.87%. You got the Mag 7 pulling back about half a point there. And then these giants, NVIDIA was up about 1.4% earlier when I was looking at it. It's pulling back. So, this market is extremely Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type market right now, right? Just yesterday, the entire market was kind of following Bitcoin a bit. So I can't tell if they actually like what's happening here with, the conflict situation, or they're, jittery about it. But as of right now, it looks like it's kind of like a pendulum swinging is what we're seeing. But you got NVIDIA still in the green, slightly up 0.14%, Google pulling back 1.32%, Apple pulling back 0.82%, Tesla pulling back almost 0.1%, and then Netflix pulling back 0.03%. So the stock market not looking too great. Futures is a little mixed here. Oil up, silver down. And then you got crypto, which had a big day yesterday, right? So I'm not too shocked that, with these numbers that I'm seeing right now, Bitcoin pulling back 2.5%. You got ETH pulling back 3.1%. But the precious metals as well. Gold pulling back 1.2%, still above that $5,000 mark for gold. but barely, or sitting right above it, right? And then you got silver pulling back at 2.23% and sitting at $81. And everybody jokes around with silver, talking about how it is the meme coin of precious metals. And man, if this gets back to $70, then yeah, I mean, it's done it 3 times within the last month and a half to 2 months, which is absolutely crazy, going from $70 all the way to 120, back to 70, back to 100, back to 70, and back to right under 100. So silver is kind of that meme coin right now for the precious metals. But that is the overall market sentiment for today. And it is towards the end of the week. You got to remember that. So, as the week winds down, things tend to kind of, relax a bit. So kind of with that pendulum swinging too, after yesterday having a strong overall financial market day, really, things seem to have taken a push to the downside. So that is what we have for the market pulse, guys. Does Bitcoin continue to the upside? Yeah, I think maybe possibly here. We'll get into a little bit deeper whenever I go over price action. But actually, we can talk about that right now because it's the main topic, right? Let's get into it. Bitcoin rips, AI explodes. AI explodes because it's all over X, and you are seeing Anthropic back in talks again with the government, right? But let's talk about the 80,000. Is 80,000 next in line for Bitcoin? 80,000 to me is a possibility of trying to reach that price point, but I do think it's going to be kind of difficult, right? And if we go here on the 4-hour chart, we can kind of look at where the new support and resistance has formed, or trying to form right now, right? So I'm on the 4-hour for Bitcoin, and you see that we hit this initial resistance area of 74,000, right? We got to that yesterday about 6 a.m. It wicked there, and it really formed that candle at like 73.5. So until we break this, now that we've kind of cycled to the downside, I believe that this is going to be our resistance level here. Now, we have a pretty clear support level here now, which was our previous resistance at 70,000, right? So as long as we stay above this, then we're good. We're not going to, break down, in my opinion, back into the levels that we were at, let's say, last week. If we do break down below this, then this definitely was a quick little fake out to the upside, and then we kind of go back to where we were. But I don't expect that to happen, right? I do think that today's pullback is definitely more about just going all the way up to 74, profit taking, and then pulling back. So more of the pendulum swinging type of situation for Bitcoin. Now, so we have to break through this $74,000 price point to be able to go up another level to head to that $80,000 resistance level. So if you go above here, though, right, and then you go to that next level to where there's potential resistance that is pretty clear, you're looking at right at 70,000 or 80,000, right? So this is the next challenge zone, right? So we need to see a couple things. Is liquidity flowing into Bitcoin? Is Bitcoin dominance continually going up? Is the Dixie going down? Is USDT dominance going down? So let's take a look at that. So right here, so let's take a look at the USDT dominance first. So dominance yesterday, Tuesday and yesterday, was crashing pretty hard for stablecoin dominance, or at least USDT dominance, right? And when that happens, that's typically Bitcoin is strong. We saw that happen yesterday, and then now we're starting to see a little bit of a reversal here, right? And this is the 4-hour chart. So the fact that things did swing to Bitcoin's favor yesterday and now swing into the downside for Bitcoin, no shocker that USDT dominance is going up. But let's kind of zoom out even more and go to the daily chart here to see if we can see some sort of trend forming here. And I think we are for the USDT dominance, right? So we had a really strong run up here the end of January for USDT dominance. Then we went sideways for a bit all through February. And now it looked like it wants to start a downtrend. And that downtrend really kind of started on Monday, right? The second when Bitcoin started to get pretty aggressive. And, obviously it happened throughout the week, and then you're starting to see this downtrend. So if we see a continual downtrend right here for USDT dominance, then that's whenever we'll get that, data conviction that says, okay, Bitcoin might be ready at this point for another leg up, right? So we need to see this dominance chart for USDT on the daily continually go down and break down below this level right here, right? So that 7% level right here, and continue this downtrend. But the good sign for Bitcoin, potentially trying to challenge that $80,000 mark, is that the trend has started for USDT dominance to go to the downside. So that is one thing that we are looking at right now. Now let's go to Bitcoin dominance and see if we're getting any data that can give us further conviction there. So we did have it yesterday, right? If you're looking at the 4-hour chart, Bitcoin dominance starting really on Monday, right? Started to this upside trend. And then we kind of hit this sideways wall yesterday evening, and then retreating to the downside now. But this also could be a sign that alts are about to get a little bit aggressive, right? So that doesn't mean that, all of a sudden Bitcoin's going to just tank and then USDT dominance is going to shoot up. No, that's not what this, in my opinion, personal opinion, what this could be a situation is that alts are going to get some liquidity flow into them, which it seems like it's happening a little bit, right? And Bitcoin could hover around this lower 70,000 until, the alts kind of get a little aggressive, and then Bitcoin's ready for that next leg up. I have been saying that, Bitcoin's move and strength in the spring is going to happen at some point, whether it's going to be, the beginning of March, middle of March, end of March, or parts in April. But, it looks like it started in the beginning of March, but that doesn't mean it doesn't, tail off a little bit and then pick back up. And so that's kind of a scenario that I think potentially could play out, right? So to answer that question about 80,000, yeah, it's on the table. It's that next level of resistance. But I do think that it's going to take some time to get there. I don't think it's just going to be some sort of, the next couple of days shoot to 80,000 and break through even like for the weekly close, right? So that's where I'm at for that question about 80,000. I think it's on the table for sure. We're just going to have to work our way there. And then I do think if it does get to that area, I do see, like when you zoom out to that weekly chart, that's been my, data that I've used for my conviction of when we're probably going to exit the bear market, until we get to that 50-day moving average and reclaim that. I think we probably come back down, to try to challenge the 200-day again at some point in April or May, right? So that's where I am with this. All right, let's get into some news here. All right, let's see what we got. Well, I do want to hit on this as well, which is, will Bitcoin go green for this week? Because we've been tracking this, consecutive negative return percents for Bitcoin, right? And we've been on a bad trend, right? Going back to the third week of 2026 of negative returns. And so last week was our 6th week in a row. So as I mentioned before, this has only happened 2 other times going back to 2014, but we are green right now. And we have a pretty good lead in to where we're green. We're up 7.89% for this week. And so Sunday is going to give us a number to really, we're going to, as we get closer to that time, 6 p.m. Central on Sunday, we'll know if we can break the streak. And I think it will be pretty significant if we do, because then we can say that we are out of this situation to where, we can get a little bit bullish in the spring, have a little bit of a lift up for the Bitcoin and the crypto markets. So if I were to bet on it, I would think that we would end this week green, and I think that would be a good start for next week. So that is where we are with that streak that has been pretty nasty. Rick G says, GM fan, long live OnChain Revolution. Yes, appreciate you, Rick G. Always been a big supporter of the show, and definitely appreciate you, sir. All right, let's get into the first headline here. It says Bitcoin rebounds to 74,000 for the first time in a month as altcoins like Solana, Chainlink, and Pepe post major single day gains. So this was from yesterday or late yesterday, right? So obviously 74,000 is when we hit that yesterday, but you can see from this chart here, it says Bitcoin and altcoins are breaking out in midst of global FUD. Now there's a lot of global FUD here, but I do think a lot of this is institution still, and I'm going to show you guys why kind of towards the end of the show, because retail is not interested right now. Retail is, they are not interested, and it shows across the board from all the metrics that retail is not interested. But, institutions have the capital, right? They're the ones that are pushing it. So this is a 24-hour, 7-day price percentage change screener infographics data, which is provided by Santiment, of course, because they provide all the data lately. But you can see the 1-day price changes here with these altcoins, right? So you had ETH go up 9% yesterday, Solana up 8%, Chainlink up 7%, Zcash, actually the privacy token, up 8%, and then Sky up 10%. Pepe, out of all the memes, was the one that was up 9%, right? And then if you look at the weekly price change here, Hyperliquid, no shocker there, up 12%. MNT up 13%, and then Sky up 11%. So things are starting to get, a bit aggressive, but we probably should have expected this, right? Because if you looked at the ETF inflows, they were net positive for like 5-6 days in a row, right? And so to me, it's not that big of a shock that we're starting to see the crypto markets come alive again a bit. All right. Let's take a look here at the next headline. All right. So stablecoin net inflows rebounded to 1.7 billion per Masari, signaling renewed crypto liquidity. So another sign, right? You can see here, and this is a chart too that says Maple continues to offer the highest yields among top pools. So Maple Finance, right? Their token is Syrup. This is an infographic that shows a comparative analysis between the top stablecoin pools by TVL, and you can see Sky Lending. That was one of the tokens I just talked about that had a really good day yesterday. They have a 4% APY. TVL of 5 billion. They're looking strong there. Athena, which I feel like some people were kind of questioning, did Athena have some issues back in Q4 of 2025 that kind of caused that whole fiasco of October 10th type situation? But they look pretty strong right now. You can see that 3.5 billion in TVL, and these are all on Ethereum too. So sometimes, I'll have an infographic about RWAs or TVL for ETH and DeFi transaction volume, and it's shocking. But you can see that a lot of these protocols started on ETH, right? But as we go down here, you see Maple Finance coming in third with their TVL at 3.1 billion, which is still very strong and significant. But their APY is the highest at 4.56. So stable coins definitely has been a huge narrative for our space, and it continually is a narrative, a large narrative. But now we're seeing like inflows increase even more, and that means that people are either earning or ready to buy other assets, right? So that is something that people tend to correlate that with. All right, Japan's 3 trillion MUFG announces use of AI for loan reviews in a joint stablecoin proof of concept with 3 megabanks. So, AI again being integrated into crypto without being forced this time, I feel like. And that's what keeps me so bullish about this narrative, this AI narrative in crypto and Web3. I always talk about late 2024, early 2025, where it was really a bunch of hype about AI and AI coins and all these things. And that's the reason why it didn't sustain, is because almost every narrative that's based on hype in crypto dies off pretty quickly, right? So, but this time, what's happening with AI is it's actually being integrated into the space without having to be forced, right? Like crypto Twitter is not the main thing that's forcing this narrative. It's happening because of the X402 rails and just how agents and AI can really benefit from, the way that crypto naturally works. And so this is something that the crypto space has needed for the longest time. And I think we finally found like the industry niche that, we really just have the best synergy with right now. Right. And I think it continues on. So this is a big thing for the space, but you're seeing, funds that have 3 trillion announcing, AI for loan reviews type situation. So really big there. All right, let's get into some price action and alts for crypto bubbles to see where Bitcoin might want to head for today, and Ethereum as well, and maybe some of these altcoins to see, how strong they're looking at the very moment. All right, so starting off with the hour chart for Bitcoin, you can see that we are, in fact, coming out of that buy pressure, right? Or we've been out of the buy pressure, I should say. We've been in sell pressure since yesterday about 5 p.m. Central Time, right? It looked like it wanted to come out, but it got halted right in the middle of that stochastic RSI, right at that 55-point mark, and headed straight for the oversold territory, right? So yesterday, in my opinion, overbought. I think most people would agree with that, right? For the short term, right? We jumped up from 68 to 74. You're talking about a $6,000 swing for Bitcoin. But now what we're seeing is a continuation of the sell pressure, right? So Bitcoin is sitting at 71,000. It is back into the oversold territory. The MACD is looking pretty strong to the downside. So, for the next 2 to 4, 6 hours, probably expect sideways with some downside pressure, right? Maybe we get back to 70,000. I do think that $70,000 mark is very important for the 4-hour chart. The 1 hour, not so much, but we don't want to break below 70,000 because it, in my opinion, it's the new psychological barrier for support, right? It's obviously the new support level here. So we don't want to lose that, because then you're going to lose confidence and conviction. So we definitely want to stay pretty, convincingly above it, right? So we don't want to challenge close to that area. But even if we do on the hour chart, I don't think that would be horrible, as long as we finish those 4-hour candles above it, because that to me is the more important thing, is to maintain these levels on the 4-hour chart, because that gives us a 2 to 3 day forecast, right? Okay, so that's what I'm thinking for the hour chart for Bitcoin next 2 to 4 hours, a little bit of sideways with some down pressure a bit, right? Going to the 4-hour chart here. So we are about to come out of this buy pressure here, this buy pressure session. So it's going to be important to see how much sell pressure we actually go into here, right? Because, if we just have kind of like your regular swing back and forth type of situation, not a big deal. We can maybe hold that $70,000 mark threshold for the 4-hour chart, but it's something to pay attention to, because again, if we lose this and we actually finish a candle below 70,000 on the 4-hour chart, we could see kind of getting back to those levels. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't necessarily, I don't expect that, but if we show that weakness around the $70,000 mark, it definitely could happen. So something I'm definitely watching is the 4-hour chart staying above that support of 70,000 there. Probably expect a little bit, like I said, right on the hour chart, which the next 2 to 4 hours, sideways with downtrend. And if we're going to get into sell pressure on the 4-hour, this could extend into heading into the weekend. But I do think that we probably hold that $70,000 floor. But, you know, as we get closer to it, I'm gonna probably feel less confident, right? So we need to show some strength soon, pretty soon. All right, that is what I got for Bitcoin on the hour and the 4-hour. Let's take a look at the daily. The daily looks pretty good. We're popping back up on the daily, so this makes me feel better about those shorter time frames for Bitcoin, right? The strength is still there. As long as the 4-hour doesn't crash, then I think we can kind of get through this weekend and start next week, right? But as of right now, the daily looks pretty good for Bitcoin. It's kind of just, you know, trading along. It's about the same as yesterday, right? But if we can just get through this weekend, then we can kind of reset and maybe extend this out a little bit. It has been going since the middle of February, though, so that is something to take into account. But that's what I see for Bitcoin on the daily chart. Let's take a quick look at Ethereum here. All right, ETH on the hour chart looks like it is wanting to go down further. So very similar to Bitcoin, the MACD, stochastics, both pointing to further down. ETH, man, poor ETH. We've been like going back and forth below 2,000 and above it barely and below it. And yesterday we got to 2150. But we're back down to 2080 right now, right? So we'll see how this plays out, but it is going to follow Bitcoin. That is just kind of how everything has been going. All right, on the 4-hour, losing the buy pressure session for the 4-hour chart here. So, you know, we'll see if we go into sell pressure. Maybe we get down to like the low 2000s, 2030 is kind of where we were before the big push up to 2130. But it definitely looks like the 4-hour wants to come out. The daily is similar to Bitcoin here, so we're looking pretty decent there. All right, let's take a look at the liquidation levels here real quick and see where some of these market makers are hunting to liquidate some of these longs, because that's where it seems like it's flipped to. These market makers are wanting to hunt the long. So you can see for Bitcoin down here, about 70,420. It gets a little bit higher volume for liquidations, about 15 million. Above that, it's like about 8 million. So nothing super concentrated. To the upside, though, it starts to get pretty heavy. So you get to back to 73.6. You got 15 million. You got 16 million and 14 million, like all consecutive levels to the upside here, from 73 to about 74,000, right? So makes sense to probably clear some of the stuff that we're closer to and then head back up there. So if you are trading, those are the liquidation levels that these market makers are looking at. Seems to be, at least. All right, let's take a look here at the crypto bubbles. See what's happening here. So this yesterday was all green. It was completely green yesterday. Now it is completely red. We are seeing pretty much an opposite situation of yesterday. You got about 95% red pullback. You got like 5% pulling up here. This Siren token actually just got into the top 100. You know, I got to look further into it, but it looks like a meme token from its image. It's like an anime person here, but it's up 30.1%. You got OKB up 20.2%. So OKB has kind of been in the news as well. They've followed Binance a little bit. Binance put out some AI skills that's related to their centralized exchange. It looks like X Wallet has kind of done that as well. So their token looks like maybe it's getting some energy from that, but it's up 20.2%. Pippin is back green, but market cap is sitting at 348 million. That one is absolutely crazy. Whoever's on that Pippin ride, man, you probably need some anti-anxiety medication. but it's up 11.1% on the day. Kite up 15.4%. You got Pi up 6%. Meme Core up 5.5%. Ton up 4.4%. Stuff that's pulled back that is significant. You got Will5 pulling back 5.6%. Doge pulling back 4.5%. Virtuals pulling back 6% here. So, even some of the AI stuff is pulled back. We got Ondo RWA pulling back 4.6%. Curve pulling back 4.6%. Hyperliquid pulling back 4.4%. Telegram token, Ton, up 4.7%. And pretty much everything else is just on average around down 3 to 5% here. Let's take a look at the top 200. Some anomalies to the upside. You got Lombard up 36.5%. H-Coin up 15.6%. If you guys have any tokens you want to take a look at as well, let me know. Drop them in the chat here, and I will definitely take a look at them for you guys. All right. Where was I? VVV up 4.6%. You got Bitcoin up 3.2%. AUD up 2.9%, and then Bitcoin up 3.2%. And then there's nothing really that's getting hammered necessarily here on in the top 100 to 200. Tibber pulling back 10%. That's a virtuals token here, and SPX pulling back 7.5% there. Even Syrup, which was in the news, is pulled back 3%. So this is just the market, guys. It's the market, and it's getting it's a volatile. It's really volatile right now, right? So we'll see if we end up bouncing back tomorrow, which I don't have very high hopes for because it is Friday heading into the weekend here. But Stan says Banker or virtuals. I just hit on virtuals, but let's check Banker. Banker coin is on the day down 5.4%. On the week, it's up 2.5%. It's ranked 337. So Banker is a AI platform token there. And then let's check out virtuals. All right. So virtuals on the day is down 5.6%, ranked number 86. I got to hand it to virtuals, though. They've gone through a lot of situations to where they didn't feel like they were getting support from base. They extended out to Solana to see if they get support there. Didn't really see too much, but they're still ranked 86. And obviously the AI meta that has been really, really hot is, in Web3 lately doesn't hurt, right? It helps them a ton. So definitely shout out to them. And then Stan says, any opinion on the Aptos founder bailing? No, because I didn't hear about that. Let me check that out, actually. Yeah, I'm going to actually check that out. Let me actually put that in here and see if I can find something. Do some live research together here. So it looks like, okay, so this is just random post about it here, but Kenzie here, I don't know how many followers, but I'm trying to get some information. Has had a great conversation with Avery Chang, co-founder and CTO of Aptos. We talked about his journey from high performance computing and supercomputers to scaling data infrastructure at Meta, how reading the Bitcoin paper reframed distributed systems. Okay, so not really seeing stuff about that. Oh, here it is. A founder leaves $20 billion blockchain. Token crashes 95%. Months later, he tweets, I have a nice Sui bag now. Wow. So I don't know if that's what you're talking about. This right here where it says that, the founder leaves a $20 billion blockchain. You're talking about this because I know Aptos has multiple founders, but I thought Avery Chang left a while ago. So I'm not sure, But anyways, if it crashed 95%, that's horrible, right? But yeah, interesting. All right, let's see what we got next on the docket here. All right, so this is kind of part of what I was talking about with retail just not being really interested right now. Altcoin Chatter sinks to 2-year low as Bitcoin holds attention. So even though Bitcoin's holding attention as well, I mean, overall retail is just not interested right now, right? And a lot of times retail is looking for those, big high ceiling opportunities when it comes to X's. And so if the altcoin market isn't really strong, then you're not going to see a ton of retail be interested, right? But let's get into this article that was written by Cointelegraph, and it says, while altcoin interest on social media is at its lowest in 24 months, so 2 years, it could pick up once again. Bitcoin's rally starts to fade according to crypto trader Michael Van Pop. I remember him. It says mentions of altcoins on social media have reached their lowest levels in 2 years, according to crypto sentiment platform Santiment, while indicators suggest that investors are focusing on Bitcoin. So there was a noticeable shift of focus back to Bitcoin like 2 weeks ago. But I mean, Bitcoin didn't really have that much interest either. I felt like, if you look at X and crypto Twitter right now, or crypto X is what I should call it probably. All you're seeing is AI everything, and some of it's related to crypto and Web3, but a lot of it's not. A lot of it is how this open cloud setup works so well, and how these people are so much more efficient now because they're using this new AI type of workflow and all these things. And there's new stuff coming out that's comparable to OpenClaw, right? Like Paperclip, that's something that I started using yesterday, which I actually think it might be, if they continually optimize it, it might be better. But going back to the interest of Bitcoin and crypto, it's just starting to fall, and Bitcoin did come back a little bit recently, the interest, but there's a chart I'm going to show you guys later that really shows what is happening. All right. It says data from Santiment shows for that week that ended February 27, altcoin social dominance scored 33, a sharp drop from its score of 750 in July of 2025. So 750 in the summer of last year to 33. Oh my God. It says around the time Dogecoin rallied 59% over 30 days. It says Google worldwide search data shows a similar pattern. The term altcoin scored 4 out of 10. Oh my God. 4 out of 100 near the end of February, compared with a score of 100 during mid-August. Oh my gosh. It's really, really bad. And it says Santiment said the lack of interest in altcoins is a bullish signal. I guess it's bullish, they're saying. Historically, however, moments like these, when social volume toward altcoin interest is at extreme lows, around the time that rallies begin. So I hope so, but you can definitely feel it though. Just on all the platforms and content as well. I mean, you feel that the interest is definitely faded out. It's just not there. And so, it's definitely not looking good right now. But, if that is the situation to where, right now Bitcoin got to 74,000 and then it's starting to go sideways and liquidity is going to flow into alts. I mean, you can see from the Bitcoin dominance chart, it's going down, right? So we could see some sort of situation whenever people least expect it. I just don't know where the money is going to come from, where the liquidity and capital is going to come from, right? Because institutions have been really, even whenever it was high back in 2025 in the summer, until there's some sustainability, you're not going to see liquidity coming from retail, right? You're just not going to see it. Even if this goes down, but if we do see some sustainable altcoin movements as a sector, then maybe we see retail come back, right? So, me get back to that chart here. All right, I'm actually just going to show that one chart that I was talking about right here. Okay, so this kind of piggybacks off of what I was just talking about. I mean, look at this. So this is weekly YouTube views for influencers. And you're talking about like the largest ones, Benjamin Cohen, Discover Crypto, all of them. So there was this weird like expectation or excitement that happened in the beginning of February. And then look at just how dramatic it's fallen off, right? I mean, and this is where we are right now. So this week, if it finishes close to, this could be one of the worst weeks ever. Now there's still like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, depending on how long they grab the data set here. But man, it's not highly searched after right now. I do think it switches though. I think it gets better. But it might take some time. All right, let's see what else we got here. Let's get into this. This one was interesting here. So 6 anonymous wallets made $1.2 million on Polymarket just hours before the U.S.-Israel strike on Iran. Coincidence or smart forecasting? Watch as we explore how prediction markets really work. Yeah, so I feel like this is something to probably be a little bit concerned about. And I almost wonder if, because Brian Armstrong came out, I want to say a month and a half to 2 months ago, and talked about prediction markets and how insider signals should be embraced, right? And it made me scratch my head a little bit because I don't understand I didn't understand at the time what he meant, but I guess something like this, right? But why would that be embraced? Because, and then also if you start to see that, Polymarket can determine the outcome because people have insider information, then you're also letting the world know, in countries that are involved with these conflicts, know what the next move is. That's going to be actually really, really crazy, right? If we get to a point like that. So probably something to continually pay attention to see if this is becoming more and more prevalent, because it's definitely something that makes me a little bit concerned, especially when you're dealing with like conflicts and wars and things like that. Even elections and stuff, like they brought up that's something to worry about from the 2024 election, because it was pretty spot on with the electoral vote outcome. But this is something different, man. This is like actual like war that's happening, and people are making money off of it. So I don't know exactly how I feel about that in terms of good or bad. Probably bad. I don't feel great about that, right? But we'll see if this continues, and if it turns into a problem too, because that's something that we got to think about, right? Because it definitely could. All right, let's get into some Bitcoin ecosystem stuff. But I want to first make sure that actually, I want to hit on this before we get into the Bitcoin ecosystem stuff. So there is a new, I would say, like application is what I would probably best call it, called Paperclip, and it is an AI platform, right? It's almost kind of, it's the way that, and this is one of the founders, I believe, Dota. They dropped it, and he posted here. He says, we just open source Paperclip, the orchestration layer for zero human companies. It's everything you need to run an autonomous business: organizational charts, goal alignment, task ownership, budgets, agent templates. Just run npx Paperclip AI on board. And he's talking about in your terminal, right? So if you guys have knowledge about like being able to run things on your terminal, I'll tell you something. I used this yesterday. I installed it, and I've been heavily building out and optimizing my OpenClaw. And there's several moments where I was frustrated, but because OpenClaw shows you amazing, brilliant things, and then also shows you like how it needs to improve quite a bit. One of the issues that I think that many people get into with their OpenClaw is organization and status of tasks, because you just kind of get, it's everywhere, right? When I started to use this, the way it works is like a ticketing system. You're like the board, the human is like the board of the company, and you create an issue ticket, and the CEO, which is your main agent, will address the ticket. So it's almost kind of like, if you work in corporate, that there's all these ticketing systems for issues that come in. It's very similar to that, which actually I love this. And they are very persistent to get that ticket closed, right? And what they'll do, even if you just start like fresh with just one agent, and you have a task that is like, let's say it's pretty detailed, right? About something with crypto. Let's just say, okay, I need to have a create like a scheduled content type of situation. The CEO will create another agent that specializes in that, task that ticket issue to that agent, and then will put pressure on that agent to close the ticket task out. And it will always ding you back whenever something needs done. And you don't need to set this up with OpenClaw. You actually, only thing that you need is either Claude, or you can use your Codex OpenAI, so ChatGPT subscription with it. So I don't know. You might want to give it a try. I love it, and I'm going to continually use it. I still use OpenClaw, but I'm just trying to experiment with a lot of things. But I think this guy is actually in the space, the crypto space, a bit, because there's a lot of people that follow him in the space. So you can go to @Dotta, DOTTA, and kind of learn a little bit more about it. I want to do a members only video that digs deeper into it and show you guys exactly how to build it out, because I did it last night and it's awesome. It's amazing. It actually helped me a ton with workflow. All right, now let's get into the Bitcoin ecosystem stuff. So a couple announcements here. I want to make sure I have this. You have Bitflow, which is an application in the Stacks ecosystem. Came out with it's called HOLDMM, which is concentrated liquidity, and it launched yesterday, right? It launched yesterday. So let me pull up their post here to kind of go over it. And it says, learn, earn, and hodl, community-powered education hub for Bitcoin DeFi and HOLDMM on Bitflow. Bitcoin builds the market, the community builds the ecosystem. You can go to bff.army to kind of learn more about it here. But Bitflow has been around for a while. I've actually talked with the founder of Bitflow before, and you can learn more about what this all means. It says community-powered education, so it just educates you on that. But let's get more into the liquidity part of it, because that is where a lot of people have been. This is what they've been looking for Bitcoin. They'll leave the Bitcoin ecosystem for more of liquidity concentration. And so their post on Wednesday says, concentrated liquidity comes to Bitcoin, the first institution grade market maker tooling purpose built with Bitcoin finality to support the expanding on-chain BTC economy. And then they announced that the HOLDMM is live, and you can go down into this post and learn more about it. It says the opportunity, Bitcoin to stable USD, $8+ trillion a year, over 99% on centralized exchanges. So centralized exchanges are taking advantage of Bitcoin yield and opportunities and all these type of situations, because there's no computation on Bitcoin layer 1 like ETH, and that's why a bunch of projects launch on Ethereum, and there's a lot of DeFi happening on Ethereum. Well, centralized exchanges probably love the fact that Bitcoin doesn't have that, because that's business for them. Well, with Stacks you can do that, and with Bitflow now they're allowing you to take advantage of those type of opportunities. And it goes into DEX trading is eating into SEX share across every major asset. Bitcoin's on-chain share still single digits. Bitflow has processed 1 billion in volume since 2024. We know this market. Now we're building the real venue for it. So with their experience, they are the right team to kind of start this initiative is, what they're putting out there, right? And then it goes into capital, how to leave Bitcoin to find $1. That's what I was kind of explaining earlier. And it says Stacks Bitcoin on Stacks, 15 institutional signers, 4,500 plus Bitcoin on chain, USDC X, Circle, dollar via reserve, same issuer, same dollar, HODLMM, concentrated liquidity engine, institution grade, settled on Bitcoin. So you can learn more about where the opportunities will be, because there are opportunities for users. You're going to have to kind of get in and learn it and try to gamify the situation, right? Like everybody's going to do. That is just how the space works. So congratulations to Bitflow for launching this, and we'll see how it goes, right? Like I mentioned, one of the founders, really cool. And they're supportive of the overall Bitcoin ecosystem, because I actually met him through Odin.fun when I was messing around over on Bob Bodley's platform. So was he. So definitely excited to see what is going to come of that. And then the next is Beyond Tech, which is backed by Layer Zero, by the way. And let me get their exact link here. So they launched an Ordinals collection, right? And Layer Zero is a protocol that is built for, Beyond is a protocol that is built for interoperability for the Bitcoin ecosystem. Ordinals, runes, BRC20s, it doesn't matter to them. They want to be that bridge that can help assist with interoperability. And they're coming out with their mint for their Ordinals collection. You guys, do your research on everything I talk about here, but they've been around the ecosystem for a good minute here. It says introducing Echoports, Beyond Tech's Ordinal collection. Echoports are dual utility digital artifacts providing significant ownership in Bitcoin's interoperability layer. Mint 12. So the mint is on the 12th of March. The supply is 5,555. Price is 0.000999 Bitcoin, and you can see the full collection details in the links below. So what you got to do is go to @beyond_tech, and you can learn about what this Ordinal collection is about. But pretty cool. They're launching the Ordinal collection. Everything in the space has its risk, right? And so do your own due diligence on top of the information that I'm giving you guys here. But yeah, so that is all that's happening right now in the Bitcoin ecosystem. I have seen some stuff with Citria. They are going through kind of their campaigns of launching their chain and those type of things. But and there's some amazing stuff that's happening in the BRC20 ecosystem that I'm seeing as well, right? But that is going to wrap up today's show. I appreciate all of you guys, joining in and supporting the show. I know it's not the most interesting times for Bitcoin and crypto, but things will get better. Things will get better. I do think the AI meta that is happening right now is going to make the space better. You just have to learn how it's evolving, right? How do you fit into this new environment? Because it is new and it is changing. The playful stuff that was so crypto native for the longest time starting to fade off. I mean, you even see it with Solana and Pump Fund. They're just not as they're not doing as much volume nearly as what they were doing before. So, but anyways, Stan says thanks. Yes, and the Glasshopper says thanks, Yagobi. Yeah, no problem, man. It doesn't matter how slow it is in terms of the space. I'm still going to be here kicking it with you guys. Obviously, I said, if my work schedule, starts to get in the way, I'll be just shifting to different times. But I'll let you guys know, give you guys a heads up for sure. But I appreciate all you guys. Without you guys, I couldn't do this show. And until tomorrow, peace.